So firstly, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do.
So, name is Khalid. I'm the Director of Leadership and Policy with the Institute of Digital Health.
And leadership and policy, talk to me about what's on your radar at the moment at the Institute.
So, at the moment, we're working to build and refine a strategy for leadership and policy that really provides scope around what the priorities are for the Institute, what we'd like to produce policy outputs on, what we'd like to advocate to government on, and it really just assists us in prioritising what is a very long list of things that we could be working on. So the strategy is called Shifting the Dial, and we released that, I think, last month. Shifting the Dial has got 3 pillars. So the first one is changing the business models of healthcare. The second one is advancing the digital health workforce. And the third one is building trust and confidence in health and data. Under each of those pillars, we've got 3 focus areas that we would hope activity in would shift the dial towards changing the business models of healthcare and advancing, Australia's transition to a digital health future. So each of those pillars plays a very strategic role in an overarching vision that we have that is for a future where we no longer have to say digital health, it is just health,
Yes.
right?
And talk to me about those 3 pillars in particular. We've heard them come up at different points and they resonate. When you talk to me about them just then, each of those resonate with me in different ways. But how did we arrive at those 3 in particular to shift the dial?
Yeah. So we held a series of consultations amongst the constituency units of the Institute. So that's our fellows, that's our associate fellows, members, organisational members, and even experts across the sector, right? So we sat down and held workshops and consultations and spoke to members and said, if we wanted to achieve X in 15 years from now, and that is a fully digitally enabled healthcare sector, what do we need to do to shift the dial so that we can start making movement towards that goal? And business models came up quite frequently. Business models goes to, the way, on the one hand, the way that we fund and structure the health system, and on the other hand, how we deliver healthcare to patients in a manner that is patient-centric and patient-conscious or consumer-conscious. The second pillar, advancing the digital health workforce, I think really speaks for itself. We've got a very strained healthcare workforce at the moment, and digital enablement in many case studies has proven to increase efficiencies, productivity, and ease the pressure on the workforce. I think that government would be very receptive to hearing about the sorts of investments we could make in digital to ease the pressure that they have on them, right? So I think it's a target of, or not a target, modelling shows that we're going to need an additional 85,000 healthcare workers over the next 2 years. If you look at what the government's done by increasing the migration cap to ease the workforce pressures across the country, by 35,000 people per year, that's across all industries, that's not just healthcare. So we're going to have to either retrain, reskill, recruit from within the country, or we're going to have to find another solution because there just physically isn't enough human beings to do the job. That's where digital comes in, and that's the case we're trying to make. And then the third one is around building trust and confidence in health and data, and that really goes to the trust that people place in the health system on the one side, and then on the other side in the data that is collected and how it's used. So that's the interoperability piece, that is the connected care piece, and that is the rights of the patients to own their own data that they are handing over to clinicians.
And so one would expect then as a member of AIDH that a lot of the content and the events and the activities that are happening on a day-to-day and a month-to-month within the Institute then will be kind of guided, going towards all of these principles and aligned with the strategy, right? Is that what we'd expect?
Correct, absolutely. I mean, and we're seeing that in today's summit and today and tomorrow's summit. It's really organised around those 3 pillars, so that a lot of the content that we're disseminating and information that we're learning really goes towards shifting the dial on digital health in Australia.
Yeah.
So it's not just a sort of a siloed strategy. It's really about guiding our policy, advocacy, and engagement activities, and this is obviously an engagement activity. And on the point of engagement, we've set up a complementary structure to engage professionals and experts across the sector, and there are expert advisory groups. So we've got an expert advisory group on changing the business models of healthcare, EAGs for short, on advancing the digital health workforce, and likewise for the third pillar, an expert advisory group on building trust and confidence in health and data. And the point really is to, so one of the things that we did with the EAGs was look beyond the fellowship and look beyond the membership of the AIDH and really draw on the expertise across the health, business, technology, digital sectors.
And then lastly, then say we shift the dial, say it all works and it's and it's done. Is that then when we start calling it health instead of digital health? What does that future look like, Carl?
I think so. Yes. No, look, I think you're spot on. It's when digital becomes so ingrained in the enablement and the delivery of healthcare that it is just business as usual. And that's what we are working towards. And I think that is very consistent with consumer expectations, particularly after the pandemic, where we saw the rapid uptake and scaling of digital health technologies to enable the delivery and the accessibility of healthcare across the country. I think once you give consumers that sort of accessibility to the healthcare system, the expectation is that it stays. So I think it's vitally important that we continue our advocacy efforts in calling for a national virtual care strategy, one that really doesn't just expect the states to coordinate amongst themselves, but actually provides leadership at a federal level and provides incentive for a federalized, harmonious approach across the states, which is really integral in the data piece, the interoperability piece. If the systems aren't harmonious and don't talk to one another, there's no point in having just interoperability in one jurisdiction unless you can transfer it across the jurisdictions. So the strategy really, I think, has been in development for about 5 or 6 months now, and what we've released is very high level for a reason, but it has had a lot of thought go into it. I'm pretty pleased with where we've landed. We've got some great experts coming on board. Mary Foley is going to chair our business models group. We've got Mark Cormack, who used to be the former head of Health Workforce Australia, who's going to chair the workforce group. And of course, Professor Trish Williams, who is phenomenal, is going to chair the Trust and Confidence Expert Advisory Group.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Cheers.